Hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Maria and I'm the coordinator of the Steps to Excellence program, and I work with the Rexdale Community Health Center. I just wanted to welcome everyone here. Thank you for joining us for Career Talks. We are going to be focusing on the career in the legal profession and talking with some of our guest speakers about their experience becoming lawyers. So let's welcome everyone. And Devika, did you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Devika, and I'm the youth worker at Rexdale Community Health Center, and I also work with Maria.
Awesome. Anissa?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anissa Datu. I'm an immigration and family law lawyer. I practice at a firm called AP Lawyers based in Pickering in Toronto, and it's my pleasure to be here with you guys today.
And Tushar?
Hi, guys, and my name is Tushar Kalra. I am also a lawyer practicing out in the Durham region. I primarily practice in the areas of family, immigration, and real estate. And I'm excited to be a part of tonight's talk, or this evening's talk.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. So we do have a number of great questions that our lovely youth have shared with us, and we're super excited to hear what you guys have to say. So I'll get started. Okay, so what was it like being a law student?
Okay, so being a law student was different it's going to differ from every student, but for my experience, sometimes it was great, sometimes it was not so great. It was really busy sometimes with the amount of assignments, the number of case law you're learning, and kind of just sometimes you'll go to class and there'll be a whole lecture that you may not understand. So it's very frustrating. So there's a lot of catch up that you have to do sometimes, but just in general, being a part of a network of other law students that you're with, there's lots of guidance. There's lots of clubs that you can take part of. The professors are very kind. You can go to them for help. There's a big social scene. There's lots of opportunities to make friends. And also there are smaller group classes as well, where you can actually analyze the information that you did learn in class. On an overall basis, I really enjoyed my time being a law student. And I think it was definitely it was a period that really tested my discipline. But at the end of the day, it's kind of just like doing any other course, but I think just with more work.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Anissa.
Yeah, I think I could add to that a little. And I feel like when I was a law student, I was so excited to not be a law student and start working. But now that I'm working, I want to go back to being a law student. And, just the experience of meeting people with such diverse backgrounds and building a relationship with your professors and your friends. And those are relationships that I still hold today. So I think just the process and, building your network, it's something that I wish I could do again. And I'm happy I went through that process.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great experience. I'm sure it was extremely hard, but for sure it was a great experience going through that and making all those connections.
Definitely.
Okay, so the next question is, was it hard to become a lawyer?
Okay, so I guess I'll start with this. And I think the easy answer is yes, it was difficult to become a lawyer, especially after doing a bachelor's degree and then seeing your friends going out and beginning their careers while, I went back to school. And so there is a lot of what we call FOMO, feeling of missing out. There's a lot of days where you're seeing your friends out and enjoying while you're at your desk with your face in your book. There is a lot of discipline, there's a lot of dedication, and I think you got to look at the long-term goal rather than the short-term goal while you're becoming a lawyer, because there are going to be days where you want to throw everything away and quit, but it's those times that make you who you are. So definitely difficult becoming a lawyer, just like any other profession, but definitely doable.
Thank you. Anissa, did you have something to add?
I agree with Tushar for the most part. It definitely wasn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I also experienced a lot of FOMO. But it is something that it is doable. And sometimes it's like a roller coaster. You'll hit your peaks and your valleys, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it. It's important to just believe in yourself.
Great advice. Thank you, guys. Our next question is, how much does it cost to go to law school?
Okay, so this is an interesting question. So in terms of cost, there's a lot of factors that one has to consider. So aside from just normal tuition, books, we're also looking at, are you living on campus? Excuse me, are you renting at a home? Whatever it is, there are so many ways to minimize costs. There are also so many ways to have a very, very, very expensive law school career. On an overall basis, I spent about anywhere between $120,000. I did a 3-year program, and that included my lodging, everything. There are different ways that someone can save money, get used books, not buy the books, borrow them, things like that. But you have to look at your own path, and you have to look at what you want. I did law school, like Tushar, we did law school in the UK. So part of that factor, part of the overall cost was also the flights that we had to take, and the exchange rate. However, part of my my decision to do law school in the UK, I compared it to the cost of doing a law school degree in Canada. For the most part, the cost is almost equivalent. Law school in Canada is definitely very expensive, and you will be, if you're financially able to afford it, that's great. But most of the time, the students are taking out heavy loans or lines of credits, and they are paying it back in there. And like any other degree, a lot of people are graduating with a significant amount of debt. And I think the message I really want to get across with this question is, don't let the debt scare you. Because at the end of the day, anything you want to do, anything you want to pursue will come with a hefty price tag if you want to pursue post-secondary education and a post-undergraduate degree or anything professional. It will come with a hefty price tag, and it is something to definitely consider. And also just weigh out your factors. At the end of the day, it's you start paying it back slowly, and that's just the normal course of action.
Sorry, yeah, I definitely agree with Anissa. And one thing I want to kind of stress as well is, you know, I do come from a very modest middle-class family. And had if I put myself in the position of where I was when I was thinking about going to law school, you know, spending $150,000 on some more education was something that I thought I would never be able to do. But, you know, there are many resources and tools that you can explore to still be able to allow yourself to pursue to continue to pursue education. And you know, just continuing on Anissa's point, it is doable. If you don't think you can do it, you will find a way to do it, and just keep at it. It is expensive, like Anissa was saying. If you go to the UK, you will be paying international tuition. But that international tuition is comparable to what Canadian law school tuition is well. So it is about the same. But yeah, so minimizing costs of if you're staying at home versus renting out accommodation, that will be a big factor there. But again, there are resources, so definitely explore your options.
Awesome. Would you be able to share any resources that maybe helped you with your law school tuition, or any advice you might give someone who's interested? What are some things that they would be able to do to perhaps save for their tuition?
There are various resources that you can go for. You know, the standard OSAP is still available for you for law school, whether you go internationally or you stay in Canada. There is a certain threshold where, in terms of how much you're allowed to receive. Also, personally, I did take a line of credit from, you know, just your standard banks that you could walk into, and yeah. So like, I mean, those are probably the two more popular resources. If you got 200K in the bank, then you won't have to go and try to get a line of credit. But obviously, we're seeing not everybody has the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have any other things, Anisha.
No, I did the exact same thing. I did OSA, and I also got a line of credit from RBC. Yeah, and that was that. But I know at one point, my parents were actually thinking of refinancing their home to be able to take some of the equity out of their home. And that's something very normal as well, that that a lot of people go through and a lot of people do when they want to fund their education. A lot of people do refinance their home if they're able to. But for us, I think the best option was OSA and getting a line of credit.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So our next question is, can you study law in Canada remotely?
So I'll get into that. And I think this is probably a more relevant question considering everything that's going on with COVID-19 and, you know, having the infrastructure to continue our education remotely. And so I think institutions are continuously putting protocols in place to minimize the impact if we did have a global pandemic like this again in the future or something comparable. And I'm sure there's many courses that schools also offer that are online that you can enroll into. I'm not sure if you can gain a full law degree remotely because there is so much face-to-face oral advocacy that is required with the law degree. However, I feel certain segments and portions are already offered online. And I think that will continue to grow as we continue to pursue schooling on a more online platform. So yeah.
Perfect, thank you. So the next question is, how long does it take to be a lawyer?
Okay, so another great question. It depends on the stream you're taking. There are different avenues, and I'm sure the youth have heard of so many different ways that you can maybe structure your law career. And Tushar and I actually have two different paths completely, even though we went to high school around the same time, or at the same time, I should say. I actually did, I only did 2 years of an undergraduate degree here at York University. And then basically I dropped out and I did law school in England. In 2008, the government changed the laws about going with the full undergraduate degree. So 2009, I jumped on a plane and I said, let's test it out. So a lot of students are going straight from grade 12 to first year law school in either Australia, England. Those are the two popular ones. But of course, in Canada, that's not what happens. In Canada, you need your undergraduate degree, and sometimes you can get early admission. So you could do maybe 3 years of an undergrad or the traditional 4, but your grades have to be top notch. So if you're doing 4 years of undergrad and then you're doing law school, you're looking at possibly graduating, you know, when you're around 24, 25, even 26 sometimes, because you also have to look at when will you get into law school. So everyone's career path would be a little different. I have friends who they got in everything they did 1 year after the other, they were mainstreamed. I have some other friends that they weren't able to get into law school. So they ended up doing a master's degree, and then, you know, then they took a year off to work to save up money. And then they went. So they actually was graduating when they were about 27, 28. So it really depends. My experience was, I think in terms of education, I spent about 5 years. So 2 years of an undergrad and then 3 years in law school. And then post law school, for me to become a lawyer, it took me about another 3 years to it was about 2.5 to 3 years to do all of my exams. There's a set of conversion exams that you have to do and the bar exam. So that did take a considerable amount of time. And you also have a placement that you have to do called articling. And that's when you actually work at a firm for 10 months, or there's a course you can take in lieu of that as well, which is only 8 months. So I did a traditional 10-month articling period. And so in reality, it took me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 years.
Wow.
7, no, sorry, 7 years.
So 7 years
Hmm.
in total. Wow, that's a long time.
Yes.
Mhm.
Definitely is.
What about you, Tushar?
Yeah, I think Nisa covered, most of the main points there, and like what everybody does have a different path. I did do a bachelor's degree in Canada before I went to law school. Like I had a business background,
Mm-hmm.
and then I decided to go to law school, and it took me roughly about the same amount of time. 8 years in total in school before you start the whole licensing process and
Mm-hmm.
writing the bar exam and whatnot. But one cool stat that I came across not too long ago, and I don't know if it's still accurate, is in Canada, the average age for law school entrance was actually 25. So if you just put that into perspective, that means that there's candidates who did their undergrad, maybe they worked for a couple years, and then they decided they wanted to go to law school. And that's just, I think that's natural, where people don't know that they want to be lawyers until they go out and get their feet wet. Or also, there's many law schools that have a holistic recruiting process where they put a lot of value on your work experience as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have the highest grades out there, but you have lots of good, valuable work experience, then that is also going to help you in applying for law school. So there's different avenues for everybody. But I don't think there's one right way to do it. So there's many options.
Thank you. That was very detailed, Tushar and Anissa. Thank you for explaining that. I think you kind of answered the next question too, which is what is the educational pathway to become a lawyer? I think you
Yeah.
guys kind of addressed that a little bit there too, so thank you. Yeah, and I think you really showed how everyone is different. Everyone might get into law school or become a lawyer, and their experience is different from someone else's. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. And I think you're right. Like this question does relate to the former one. The only one thing I would say here is the great thing about going to law school is that you don't need to know that you want to be a lawyer right when you start
So
university.
true. Yeah.
The good thing about law school is, you can go into fashion design in your undergrad and then decide you want to be a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's totally okay. There's a lot of people take that route, right? The main thing about law school is that you want to make sure you keep your grades high when you're in undergrad. And that's the main thing I would say is get good grades, and you can still pursue law school. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very important point, actually. You always hear stories of lawyers who started off doing science and then decided that they wanted to become lawyers. So it's really cool, actually. And it's one of those things, sometimes it could be life experiences, work experiences that get you to that point where you're like, hey, I want to be a lawyer. So great. Thank you. Our next question is, what courses should I focus on in high school and in post-secondary school to become a lawyer?
Again, like I wouldn't say there's many skills and attributes you need to be a good lawyer. But I would say if there's three main ones: dedication, discipline, and organized. And the reason I think those are very important is it kind of goes hand in hand to our question earlier. But there's really gonna be times where you have people around you fun things during the summer and while the weather is nice, when you're going to be inside studying for exams and reading a book, and there's going to come those times where you're going to be, what am I doing? Where you have the feeling that you want to quit. But my advice there would be persevere, keep going, and by the time you reach to the finish line, it's going to taste that much sweeter because you know how you felt during those low times, and so I think just being persistent, being disciplined, and being dedicated to what your end goal is,
Mm-hmm.
is going to get you there. And I always use the term, keep your eye on the prize. And you really do need to do that, because you can easily be distracted and quit. But that's what differentiates you from everybody else. Keep going.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Anissa?
I agree with Tushar. There's a certain mindset that you have to have, and I think it's just kind of being committed, being determined, and also knowing that you'll get out of it, you'll get through it. A big part of what we go through is struggling with balancing how we feel, and I don't want to label it, but it is our mental health, and it is, the late nights, the early mornings, the sleepless nights, the amount of Red Bull that we probably drink, and just the content that sometimes you just can't wrap around your head. So it's also just knowing kind of internally that, you know what, this is going to be over soon. And what I kept telling myself when I was a student was this being in law school, I think, was actually the easier part. Believe it or not, the law school degree was the easier part of the journey. It was graduation to when we got called to the bar was, I think, the biggest test of all of your skills and your patience, and that's when you really shine. And that's what I really kind of reflect on more, was that post law school process and how I survived that, as opposed to law school, because law school is, in as much as it's structured, it's also not structured, but you find your own way within it. And you also know when your exams are, things like that. But once you graduate, you're in the real world. And that's definitely something that that a lot of people don't realize, that sometimes it's harder, not for everyone, but my experience is that it was a lot harder post law school than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. Would you be able to share a little bit about what the bar is, getting called to the bar?
Yes. So getting called to the bar is something, that's a great question, because I also didn't know what it meant. When I was in high school, people were like, oh, I got called to the bar. And I actually thought they were going to the bar. So, so getting called to the bar is more or less a very historical notion that we still carry forward with us today. And traditionally what it was, and this is how someone explained it to me, so this is exactly how I'm going to explain it. Traditionally back in the day, the courtrooms had a little bit of a gate, and they still do today actually, which was referred to as the bar, and only lawyers could cross that and get into the main area of the courtroom. So when you're called to the bar, it's essentially signaling, and it's a symbol that you can actually cross that path. You're now on this, you're part of a giant network where everyone else is on the bar as well. And it comes with a certain dignitary as well, that they're upholding you to tell the truth, to have ethics. You would definitely have to have a code of ethics. They do a character check, things that they're very a clean criminal record, things like that. I also just kind of that term, knowing that you've been called to the bar. I know a friend of mine she's from South America, was at the airport, and they were giving her a hard time because of her travel history back and forth to Venezuela. And when they asked her, what do you do? She said, I'm a lawyer. And they said, oh, when were you called to the bar? And she said, I was called to the Ontario bar so many years ago. And that's it. They let her go. So there's definitely a little bit of, I want to say a little bit of a majestic component that sometimes travels with that.
But it's definitely, it's definitely a long process to get there, for sure. And thank you for explaining that so eloquently, Anissa, about being called to the bar, because I know that some questions like, what is that? So thank you for answering that. It's basically when you officially become a lawyer.
Yes.
An Ontario licensed lawyer. Awesome.
Yeah. And I just want to say, because I was actually called to the bar not too long ago, so that
awesome, congrats.
Those memories, thank you. So those memories are still kind of fresh for me. But like what Anissa was saying, the call to the bar ceremony itself, it's like that final step of the process where you can officially call yourself a licensed lawyer in Ontario. And By the end of that ceremony, you will be a licensed lawyer in Ontario. It's pretty much a celebration of all the candidates going through that long, rigorous process. And I would compare it to, not the significance is different, but it's also kind of like a commencement for any university, for any university degree.
For sure. That's such an accomplishment. So congratulations to you both.
Thank you.